So there's so many SSDs out on the marketplace. How does one decide on which SSD to buy?
So in the server space, it's all about SLC, which is a performance-based solution. And in the consumer notebook space, it's all about MLC, which is more of a cost-sensitive and higher density-based solution.
So what differentiates Samsung's SSD from other SSDs?
The biggest differentiator for Samsung's SSD is the fact that we're a vertically integrated company in that we make both the controller as well as the NAND technology utilized in the SSD. In the business notebook space, we think that 64 gigabytes is actually more than enough for the majority of business notebook users. In the consumer space, where you tend to have more multimedia files, such as movies or pictures, consumers may want 128 or even 256 gigabytes of storage.
There's been conflicting reports on how much power SSD can save. Can you clarify that for us?
Sure. Most of the data I've seen shows a power savings in the range of about 5 to 15% in the notebook space. So you do get a nominal performance in that, but it is much more efficient. So if you think about power as efficiency, the SSD is going to be able to perform more in a given amount of time because of its better performance. In the server space, the power consumption for an SSD is markedly reduced because of the fact that you're comparing it to a 15K RPM hard drive. The price gap between an SSD and a hard drive has started to narrow in recent months, but I think what's more important is people have to look at what's called a TCO, or total cost of ownership, of an SSD when they calculate this equation. And because of the improved performance that you get with an SSD, you're going to have a more efficient workforce. That's number one. Number two is because of the increased reliability with an SSD, you're going to be able to reduce your instance of field failures by going from a hard drive to an SSD by an order of magnitude.
So beyond performance, what makes SSDs attractive to users from an environmental perspective?
So from a green perspective in a notebook space, right off the bat, you're going to pick up about 5 to 15% power savings by utilizing an SSD. In the server space, you have a very robust power or green play with SSD because the value proposition is so strong because of the fact that the performance per watt used is so markedly improved from an HDD. You can have more than 100x improvements in calculations per watt used.
How important is the controller to SSD performance?
The controller is integral to the SSD performance, and that's sort of the secret sauce that allows you to have the faster write speeds, the faster read speeds, as well as the wear leveling algorithms that will extend the life cycle of an SSD. So we really think that the HDD and the SSD markets will continue to coexist. HDD will exist where you have very high capacity or storage requirements, and SSD will continue to make inroads where you have very mission-critical applications that demand performance as well as reduced power consumption.
So where can a consumer find Samsung SSDs?
Today we've seen Dell and Lenovo be the most aggressive launching the SSD in the early stages, but I want to emphasize this is just the beginning. We expect to see SSDs proliferate throughout the notebook platforms, as this is the key differentiating technology right now in the PC space because of the increased performance, improved reliability, and reduced power consumption.